Welcome back to the podcast, folks. This week it's something a little bit different. I was invited down to Nathan Millward's place, Dorothy's speed shop, to do a bit of an evening with event. So we had a live crowd there. They were all there to be bored by me as I chat about my round the world trip, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to also have a bit of a podcast in front of a live crowd, a bit of a Q&A session that went along with it. I hope you enjoy it. First off, a massive shout out to this week's podcast sponsors, who are Innov. Now, Innov produce the motorcycle dash cams. You've probably seen them on the main TeapotOne channel. There's the single camera C5, there's the dual camera systems, the K systems, the K2, then the K3, which had an external mic and an external remote, and then the flagship K5 model, which is 4K front camera, 1080 rear, has much faster Wi-Fi. That's the current one I have fitted onto the tractor at the moment, and if you watch the California Superbike School vid at Cadwell Park, all the onboards are captured with the K5 system. Really worth having, folks. They're totally autonomous. They start recording the second the ignition comes on, and in the event of an accident, the first thing your insurance is going to ask is there CCTV? And if you have one of these system fitted, then there is. Head to innov, innov.co.uk/TP1 for more information. Whenever you deal with Innov, please tell them TeapotOne sent you. I don't get any cut of any sales, but it is a massive help for them to know that I have sent you their way. Next up, I just want to say a massive thank you to you for listening, for watching, for leaving a review on Apple Podcasts if you have already. If you've not and you feel like doing so, that is a massive help, folks. And if you want to go that extra mile, head on over to Patreon. So that's patreon.com/TeapotOne, and you can join the clan over there from as little as £1 a month. Any and all help is greatly appreciated, even if it's just watching the vids, giving it a thumbs up, leaving a comment, and sharing it with your mates. It all is a huge help. All right, folks, let's crack on with this one. It's another live recording with an evening with TeapotOne.
This is going to be recorded for my podcast, so can I just introduce it just now to the video? This will all make sense if you watch the vid. All right, folks, welcome back to this week's podcast, and this week I'm here at Dorothy's Speed Shop with Nathan Millward and a live crowd. Right, a little bit different, folks. You probably are struggling to see me because we have to watch the lighting so they can watch my boring pictures, but I am here, believe you me. Nathan and I are just going to have a wee chat about my Starbucks trip, and then we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A, and we'll go from there. All right, let's crack on. Over to you.
I wanted to capture that. What was the trip, Bruce? Sum it up as to what you did.
Yep, so back in 2012, I left from the Cenotaph in London on my trusty GSX-R1000, the Beast, the original Beast, to ride 74,000 miles through 54 countries in 442 days, basically to keep a promise. That's it, right, to the bar.
To the bar? There is no bar, so you have to ask more questions. That's a broad brush stroke of everything. But, the noughts and crannies is obviously the biggest question to get it out of the way. The bike choice is a bizarre, uncomfortable one. So why the GSX 1000?
I get asked this all the time, but that's the only bike. I'd only ever ridden sports bikes. I passed my test and I had a Gixxer 600, and then from that I went to the Gixxer 1000, so I'd only ever ridden Gixxers. I did a lot of miles in those days, 40-odd thousand miles a year, rode every single day, rain, wind, or shine, snow, didn't matter, I rode the bike. So I didn't have any comfort issues on the Gixxer. My body was used to it. So for me, comfort didn't come into it because I was comfortable. I did think about the practicalities of it, for sure, but then I'd seen that Jacques Lucassen, who's a mad Dutch guy, he'd done it on, was it the R1? And then Nick Sanders, the Welsh chap, he's done it on Hondas, Triumphs, Yamahas, everything, yeah. So I had a little chat with Jacques actually at the Horizons Unlimited event. And after a few beers, told him what I was thinking of doing, and he just sort of smiled and said, take the bike that makes you smile, and I wish you good luck. So that was it. I was like, right.
It's a big old decision, though, isn't it? Setting off around the world.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a story as to it came to be a good idea to do such a thing. But yours is as personal as most people's are. But what was the...
Yeah, ultimately, I made my mum a promise. Sadly, my mum was losing a battle with cancer, and towards the end, I moved her in to live with me. We still didn't know this was terminal. We thought she'd had like chemo 3 or 4 times by this point, and just assumed that she'd go through chemo and she'd get through it. But as she was getting more and more unwell, we'd spend a lot of time just chatting in my flat about life and things. And we were on the couch one day, Long Way Round came on the TV, on Dave or Motors or something like that, one of those channels. And I had the moan saying, it's all right for McGregor, Hollywood celeb, all that money with the backup crew, blah, 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 blah. And my mum just said, you've always spoke about riding a bike and you've never done it. I didn't have a licence at that point. You've always spoke about travelling and going around the world. Since I saw Long Way Round originally, I was always like, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. And she just said, look, don't get to my stage where you're facing the end and you regret what you've not done in life. Look after those that you love, but live your life. And you hear about these epiphanies, don't you? You hear about these seminal moments people talk about, and it was one of them. It was literally like a flash went off, and I was like, right, I've got to do this. So I booked my direct access there and then, and that was it really. So passed my test eventually, had to do it twice. Put my foot down in the U-turn. But the day I passed my test, I picked up my brand new Gixxer 600 that was waiting for me at the dealership, and I rode it to St Christopher's Hospice in Penge, which is where my mum she decided she wanted to sort of pass away there rather than in my flat, bless her. So I turned up at her ward at the hospice and shook the keys to my new bike, dressed as a Power Ranger in my Dionysus suit, and said, I've done it, I've passed my test. So she just gave me a big hug and said, right, promise me you'll do your trip. Obviously I said I will, and she passed away 5 days later. So I left on her birthday, 2012. That was it.
And how long after passing your test did you go?
It was quite a while. I passed in 2008 and I didn't leave till 2012 because at that time I was a copper in London, so I knew we had the Olympics. I worked in quite a specialised division, and I knew we had the Olympics in 2012, so I thought there's not a hope I would get any time off work until that was done. So I just sort of set October 2012, that's my date.
You only got a 6-year delay, is that right?
4, just under 4 years it was.
Which is quite a long time for an idea to lose its...
Yeah, originally I'd planned, like everybody, I thought, well, I can't afford it, I can't get that length of time off work, so I'll wait till I retire, and I'll do it when I retire. But as fate would have it, I was chasing one of London's finest down the road in Catford one day at work, and he pulled a gun on me, and literally like that far away, just pointed the gun in my face and pulled the trigger, and it went click. So you sort of look at your life after that. And I was out for a curry with some mates later on after that. Told them about my plan to ride around the world, and they went, Jesus, if ever you needed a sign, that's it. That's your mum saying, get off your arse and get on with this. So that definitely sped things up, and that's when I thought, right, I can't go till after 2012. I need to get the Olympics out of the way, and then I'll go. So it ended up being about 3 years.
And I guess a big factor in anybody's decision to do something like that is home life, family life. So yeah, you've got a kid that.
Yeah, my son. I have a son. I don't live with his mum. We'd split up. We got together at uni back in the day in Glasgow. So I was quite a young dad. My son she's 14 by the time I decided I was going to go off around the world. So I had a bit of time just to sort of get him used to the fact that this is what I was going to be doing. And I was chatting to some of you out there. We went away on bike trips, so you could see what sort of stuff I'd be up to. And he was brilliant. He was great about it. My family were obviously, my dad was a little bit nervous about the prospect of me disappearing off by myself. My missus at the time, we met after I decided I was going to do the trip, so that was an interesting first date. She was telling me that she was going to do this and that, and I had to say, well, in a couple of years' time, I'm buggering off around the world for 2 years. So there was all that you have to balance, but I was doing the trip come hell or high water. It was happening, and I think at the end of the day, you set your sight on something, don't you, and you have to commit to it, and it was going to happen. So
because there's a lot of people who have a similar ambition, but it obviously falls by the wayside.
Yeah.
reasons, and you obviously had reasons why it could have fallen by the wayside, but you ploughed ahead.
Yeah, I think doing a trip like this is innately selfish, really. It is quite self-indulgent, I think, and you are leaving people behind who are naturally going to be worried about you, and I don't know about you, but I wasn't nervous about my trip. I just wanted to go. I just wanted to crack on with it, and the adventure was all part of it. It turned out Africa got a little bit hairy in places, but most of the trip was awesome. But my family left at home. They're worried about me every single day. My missus is worried right up until the end of the day when I could send her a message whenever I could to say, right, I'm here. I've got to this point, just send her a Google Map reference and say, right, this is where I am for tonight. So I do think it is quite a selfish thing to do.
Did you ever, I don't know, did that ever play on your mind when you were riding, when you were doing the trip?
What about the people I was left at home?
About it being a selfish thing to do. Or just that it was so engaged in the act of doing it.
In the early stages, it's been said by quite a lot of people, about the first sort of 6 weeks, it takes you about I found it took me about 2 months really to settle into the trip, and you stop thinking of it like it's not a road trip anymore. It's life. You're heading east now till you get back where you started. So, when you go away on a road trip, you're always about halfway into it. By day 3, day 4, if you're away for a week, you start thinking about, I'm going to be heading home soon. But on a trip like that, you're not coming home for a long, long time, are you? So the initial stages, I'm thinking about home and everyone at home, but I've got to admit, once you're into the trip, I'm just focused on what I'm doing, where I'm going, where am I going to get fuel, where am I going to sleep. Yeah.
And the first trip was, what's interesting about your story is the first time around it kind of ended in failure, I guess.
Yeah, it did, yeah. I did all Europe and everything like that, and then I crossed down into Africa and went down West Africa, and my plan was to circumnavigate Africa. But I think it was a combination of bad timing, really, on my part, and the bike I was doing it on. I got into Mauritania, which is sort of your first, if you're going down the west of Africa, it's your first taste of proper overland, isn't it? There's 2 roads in the entire country. One goes right down the edge of the Sahara and the other one cuts diagonally sort of through the country. So straight away, you haven't got the infrastructure that you've got even in Morocco and places like that. You're now into the start of proper North Arab Africa, aren't you? And I snapped the frame on my bike, literally crossing the desert. I hit a bump in the road and it just snapped the frame, the subframe. I got heat stroke, I'm in a leather suit. Everything that you shouldn't do, I did. I'm in 40 odd degree heat in a leather 2-piece suit on a broken bike. I didn't have water, it was just woefully unprepared. And then by that point, the Boko Haram, the Islamic fundamentalist group that kidnapped all the Nigerian schoolgirls, they'd sort of exploded through Africa. So they'd already sacked Mali and Timbuktu, and they'd come across into Mauritania. So I was catching little updates on this as I was working my way down through like Morocco and Western Sahara. And I think at that point I'd sort of freaked myself out. I'd started to think, maybe this isn't a good idea to head in here. But I went for it anyway. And thankfully I met up with a South African chap who was heading to South Africa. He'd just divorced his wife and was heading to South Africa back home. So we buddied up for the Mauritanian stretch, and effectively he saved my life because I got in a bad way with heat stroke, and I think I'd still be there now if I hadn't met him. But we just got robbed. We just got robbed every single day, multiple times a day by the police and by all the checkpoints that were there. And then we met the Rosso border. Did you experience, have you done Rosso ever?
Yeah.
Rosso at the time, it's the border between Mauritania and Senegal, and it's down in the south-east of Mauritania. And at the time, it had the enviable reputation as the most corrupt border in Africa, and it lived up to its rep. We just got set up by the police. We got taken by a gang, and it weren't fun. So by the time I got through that, I had enough money. I think I worked out I had enough money to get to South Africa, but then that's assuming nothing happened to me going through, Cameroon, Nigeria, DRC, everywhere like that. But then I thought, once I'm in South Africa, I've got no money. I'm totally out of cash then. So I made the decision to ship the bike back to the UK, and then I would go with it, get back to work for, I didn't know how long, and try and get all my money back, try and recoup some money. Because I sold everything I owned to do that trip. And that was my plan, basically. Get back home, get back to work, save up again, and then I'd go. And as it worked out, the gods favoured me, and I picked up a sponsor once I was back in the UK and could go again. Yeah.
And how big a decision was it to decide to go again? I mean, it's a big thing to sort of, in a sense, fail at something, or realise you're probably in too deep for something, and then to come back out and go, I'll have another go at that. That's almost setting yourself up for failure, isn't it, in a sense? But
when I got back, it's probably the lowest I think I've ever felt in my life, to be honest. You feel a failure, you're embarrassed. I spent 3 years building up this trip, and everybody I knew that I was doing this trip.
You did quite a PR, didn't you?
Yeah, loads. Yeah, I was writing for a magazine and all sorts. And literally 7 weeks to the day, I landed back at Heathrow, and it was like, wow, what a cock up. But I think the difficult one then was my missus, because now I was home, my missus is now literally like picking curtains for our house together, and that's a nice ring and all this sort of stuff, So that was the difficult one, that once the option to go again presented itself with a sponsor, then I had all those thoughts of like, oh crap, I have to break this to Nikki now, to my missus. So that was the big one. But she was good as gold. And I think the first part, it going wrong in Africa, probably helped me, because when I got the option to go again, nothing was, I even said to my wife, I said, the only way I'm coming back is on that bike or in a box. So it's happening, I'm going. So I think that gave me the drive really just to go the next time.
And I guess, what did you learn, or what did you change, having learned on the first one, to go into the second?
Never give up. And I live by that to this day. If there's something that you want, never give up. You might have to change your plan, you might have to change the route, the path that you're taking to get to whatever your objective is. But just, if you want it, never give up. Do everything you can and keep going. And it'll happen. It will happen.
And in terms of the bike, you obviously didn't think, I'm going to take a different bike. It was still...
It's always going to be that.
It's still that bike, yeah. And the leather suit as well, you thought, well...
Yeah, maybe it was naivety, I don't know, but in my head, I had that in my head. My bike, in the clothing that I always wore, we're going to do this trip. She's family, that bike, so there was just no other question, really. I did actually, about 2 years into the build-up, get approached by a chap who wanted to part sponsor the trip and give me a bike, but it was a Ducati Multistrada, like a 2005 Ducati Multistrada, and he was a mechanic and he wanted to totally strip the bike and rewire it and make it bomb-proof to do this trip, and that really did kill it for me. I didn't have the same appetite, the same drive for it.
What was in it for him then?
Exposure.
That's of his mechanicking?
Yeah, of his garage. Yeah, he had a race team as well. So I don't really know. It was just, looking back, it was an incredibly generous offer for him to do. I used him for all my mechanicking on that bike, in the build up to it. And I suppose in a way, thankfully, the deal fell through, so I ended up taking my bike that I'd always wanted to.
And when you got the bike back from Africa, did you ride it, or did it just park up in...
No, I rode her for a wee while. I think the last time I rode her was my book launch, 2015, mid-2015, and that's the last time I rode her. But she went around Cadwell, God, where else have I been? I did all sorts of places on her, and she ran like a dream.
After the first trip to Africa and you brought it back?
No, after the trip, when the trip was finished. I still rode it for about a good year before I sort of retired and bought another bike. Yeah.
And that's when you went to the dark side of it?
Well, no, I went to a Tuono. I'd always wanted a Tuono, so I bought a Tuono, which lasted 4,500 miles, and then it was traded in for another Gixxer. Awesome bike to look at and listen to, but just a pig to own. It didn't like early starts, it didn't like cold weather, it was horrible. So I traded that in for another Gixxer, and then from there I went to the dark side.
I mean, when you're dressed in the suit and on the bike, in an English setting, that's not too atypical of a motorcyclist. People aren't going to think that guy's in a full leather suit on a suit. But in Indonesia or Thailand or Africa, It must be quite a strange encounter for them to see. And how did they react to you as this alien-looking being?
The only place where I felt like I had a negative reaction was in Mauritania. And it was really quite interesting to see the difference in how we were... the reactions we got from the people around about us, because there was Roger, who's this older South African guy, was on a Ural, the sidecar unit. So he's on one of them, and he was literally in like offshore rigger boots and an old helmet and an old jacket. And he would go down the road ahead of me, and people would run along waving and smiling, and then I'd come along on that bike, and they were literally throwing their sandals and throwing stuff at me. And even he was like, well, wow, there's quite a difference between the reactions. And that's the only place that I had that. Everywhere else, Indonesia, they absolutely loved it. And Malaysia, they just loved that. They saw the number plate, they saw me. And
it's quite a bike-obsessed culture.
It is, yeah. Southeast Asia, definitely, yeah, they love it. And they don't get big bikes over there, so to see a big bike as well in the flesh, they loved it.
And what would you say were the limitations or the hurdles that bike meant for you on the journey? Off-road for sure. It did go off-road, it did go in some sand, there was a stretch going through Laos, which will forever be stenciled in my memory. It's probably some of the hardest sort of couple of days I've ever spent on a bike, but it made the trip. It's the fact that bike was going places it shouldn't go really is what sort of made it for me. I'm no off-road specialist, as a lot of you will know. I don't like off-road, but on that Sinis video, I thought you did very
well. I will do it. I'll get by at it, but I prefer tarmac. I prefer the track. Off-road, I don't know what I'm doing. I just feel like a fish out of water.
Did the riding disappoint you on the way around the world? And when I say disappoint, I mean, did you hope that there might be more tarmac that you could ever go out?
No, not at all. Not at all. I had no expectation that there was, I think it would have been boring as hell if there was just tarmac everywhere. It would have been boring. You can ride tarmac anywhere, can't you? But I quite like the stretches where, like Russia, where the tarmac just ends and you're just going down rock and dirt and praying it doesn't rain. I liked all that. I just liked how different countries had the different styles of road. They had different driving. Some of the driving's a bit illuminating, isn't it, in places? But no, I would happily do it again on that bike. I'd happily take another. Yeah. I always.
Somebody gave you, here you go, Bruce Smart, here's a cheque for X amount.
100% now, yeah, definitely. I said when I came back, everyone asked that, and I was like, well, I've done it. I don't feel like I've got the same drive anymore that I had before, but definitely, we're nearly 10 years down the line. If the opportunity presented itself, I'd be gone. I'd go now through the door and go.
Yeah. Right, Bruce, on a quick question on the bike. What tyres did you use on the bike? Was it normal?
Yeah, I was actually sort of part sponsored by Bridgestone, so they supplied the tyres. So I did it on their T30s, which were their sport touring tyre. That was the idea. As it turned out, they didn't really come through on their side of the deal. So whenever I could, I put Bridgestone T30s on, but I think there were a couple of places where I had to chuck on whatever I could get, basically. But tyres were never an issue. I always aimed roughly for my service intervals. Like on the Gixxer, I think they're every 6,000 miles, I think, or 4,000. So I would probably every 6,000 I'd just aim for a big city, and I'd just Google sports bike shop, motorcycles, super bike, something like that. And I'd just contact them through Google Translate and say, I'm riding the Gixxer, I should be with you in 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks time. I need this sort of service done. Can you do it? And can you get us a set of tyres? And that always worked. Always worked. Yeah. As long as I gave people enough notice, generally it was no problem.
And did that apply for planning in general for the trip? Because it seems like a big thing to embark upon.
Yeah.
So from a planning point of view, is it about being meticulous at the front end, or is it about being spontaneous and letting things happen, or a bit of both?
Yeah, I think I started thinking you have to be really meticulous, and I had 3 years, so I had plenty of time to work things out. I don't think you need to be that meticulous, to be honest. You need to figure out, do you need a visa? for this country that you want to get to, and in which case, if you do need a visa, how do you get it? Do you have to apply from it from, like if you're from the UK, do you have to apply from it from the UK, or could you get it at the border point or the country next to the country that you're going to? Do you need vaccinations, meds for this particular stretch? Shipping, so for me, I was working my way to Japan eventually, and then from Japan across to Thailand. So how do I ship there? What do I do? And then once I've got all the way down to Australia, how do I get to South America? And then from the States back here, how do I do that? So there was like 3 major shipping points that I had to figure out. And again, the hub, Horizons Unlimited, is where that comes to the fore. You just do literally a Google search, or ask. Just get on there and say, I want to get from this point to that point. Has anyone done it? When did you do it? And who do I contact? And that's sort of all I did, really. Just worked out major shipping points. Initially, I was looking at major border crossings, but as it turned out, I'd just go to whatever one was on my route, basically. I was just following the road, and if that took me to the border point, I used that border point. That was pretty much it.
From a route point of view, if you were to go again, what would you do a similar route, or what would the?
I want to do Africa. I want to do Africa. Yeah, that's sort of a little burning thing in my soul that's beat me, and I want to go back and tick that one off. I want to do.
Route down Africa, then.
Yeah, I would like to go back and do that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but the problem, Africa is, it's 30 odd countries, isn't it, or 50 odd countries, all in that one continent, and it's so volatile. Like, things change from hour to hour, don't they? You can wake up and it's fine, and then by lunchtime all hell's breaking loose, or vice versa. So I'm not ready to tackle that yet, but I do want to do it at some point. I want to do Mongolia because I never got there. I want to do all the stands because I didn't get to do that. And I'd love to see a lot of the Middle East because I missed the whole of the Middle East out. So I want to go back and do that. But obviously it's a bit too volatile at the moment, I think. A bit foolhardy.
Is that your marriage? Or,
Yeah, it's not just me anymore, is it? I mean, my missus would never stop me, but it's definitely something that I would consider, like, her feelings definitely now, because certainly going somewhere like the Middle East.
What about going together? Would you ever consider a more manageable trip where 2 up?
I would, but I don't think she would. Right. I'm pretty sure she would not tolerate a big whole trip like that on the back of a bike. She would do little bits, I would think. She'd maybe come and meet me for stages and do something like that. Yeah.
That could be a compromise.
Definitely, and I think now that effectively this is my living now, it's probably something that as long as I can swing it by the wife, it's probably something I could facilitate, is just hitting the road for a longer period of time, because I can create content on the road, can't I? So it's definitely something I've been thinking about. Not really spoken to the wife about it yet, so sorry wife if you're watching this.
Bruce is off on Wednesday.
It would certainly be a little bit more, I don't want to say problematic, but there would be a few more things to consider this time round.
Very diplomatic.
Thanks. I've got electric in my head at the moment. I probably shouldn't have said that, but I've got going around the world by electric bike. I've got that in my head.
Do you get not very far at all?
Yeah, probably not. Might make it to Dover. Yeah.
All right, okay. I mean, I'm looking at you now, obviously a big, strong, strapping man. Just doing your Tinder profile.
I'm glad you said Tinder. Thought I'd seen you before.
From a security point of view, people obviously, it's a big question. People always ask, is it safe? And as a man of stature, does it feel? Does that give you a better sense of safety, do you think, or does it make no difference?
It's difficult for me to say, because I'm not a 4'6" shrinking violet. Do you know what I mean? But I genuinely don't think it makes any difference, because although some things might be in my favour, in other circumstances, people might be less inclined to come and talk to me because I'm 6'3", 20 stone geezer, So I think it sort of just depends on the situation and how you are. Sam Manicum always says, face everything with a smile, doesn't he? And to be honest, apart from the times when they were shoving an AK in my face, I didn't really feel like smiling at that point. But everywhere else in the world, you just treat people the way you expect to be treated. You be courteous, you be kind, you be approachable. And I can't think of a time when that wasn't reciprocated to me. It was the kindness and generosity of strangers that blew me away. That was the big thing for me on my trip, was realising that everyone is pretty much the same. Everybody wants to help whenever they can, and most people are good. Yeah, so in terms of security, I think you need to listen to the little voices in your head, listen to that little sixth sense. If you get the feeling that, this situation is maybe not the best, listen to that and, act accordingly. But on the whole, I don't think you've got too much to worry about.
No. What about mechanical skills? People think you shouldn't need to be the Ray Mears mechanics to do a trip. Your knowledge is pretty limited.
I'm inept. I mean, I literally could lube my chain and tighten my chain, and I knew how to take the fairings off of my bike. That was about it. In fact, that was it. That was the extent of my mechanical knowledge. I spent a fortune on Halford's professional tools, a full big toolkit that weighed a ton. And I was sort of halfway across Russia when I was unpacking and repacking the bike for the 50th time, trying to figure out what's going to be the best way to pack all this stuff. When I just suddenly realised, if I break down, I don't know how to use these tools, so what's the point of me having them? And I literally I dumped loads of my kit.
You've got the tools for the person who comes to help you.
Yeah.
So he can use it.
But what I found, like the 1 or 2 times when I had to go and find a mechanic, out in the wilds, you have to find somebody, they've got what they need. Oh. Like Indonesia, I think there's a picture, that's Laos, that's going through Laos. I was going through Indonesia and I had to do a water crossing. I ended up flooding the bike. I had no idea what I had to do, but luckily, a local copper came by on his moped and sort of just put his foot on my exhaust and pushed me a mile or two to the next village where there's a mechanic who's just got a queue of mopeds because everyone had flooded their bikes. And he showed me what he was doing on the mopeds, take the spark out, turn it over, get the water. He was literally lifting the mopeds up. Obviously, we couldn't do that with my bike. But, try and get the water out as best you can, then change the oil, change the spark plug. We did all that and the bike fired up and off we go. And he had all the tools there that I needed to do all that. So yeah.
Apart from basic service items and basic maintenance, a bike want for much, subframe?
Rear subframe, yeah. I went through four rear subframes in the end. There was one in West Africa, one on the M1 when I got back after Africa. I was going to Donington for a track day and it snapped. It just snapped on the slip road. And then it snapped twice crossing Russia. And then the last time, a stunt company from the UK were following the trip and they said, if you pay for the materials, we will build you a solid aluminium rear subframe and we'll ship it somewhere to you, wherever you need it. And as luck would have it, I crashed in Japan, so I ended up living with a family for nearly 4 weeks. So I just got it sent to their place in Japan. And that is still on the bike to this day. That was literally it, and I had one puncture on the entire trip. Yeah. One puncture. Yeah.
I bet we have one tomorrow.
Well, I had. You can't quantify the first one as a puncture. A little parting gift from Mauritania was they put a machete through my rear wheel. So, but I wasn't on it at the time. But yeah, that was one. But the only proper genuine puncture was in Indonesia. Yeah, where we had to ride on the pavement because there was no room on the road, and I picked up a nail. That was it.
You did pretty well.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, honestly, yeah, I was chuffed.
And in terms of corporate help, Suzuki didn't.
No. I had a bit of a run-in with the guy that handled Suzuki's PR. For 3 years I'd been badgering him, saying I'm doing this trip. Initially they said, yeah, they would support me. If you buy the bike, we'll provide the servicing. So happy days. I bought the bike, and then they went, I think it's going to be a bit problematic giving you global support with the services. And then I said, well, what about just help with marketing? Could you retweet it and share it on Facebook? And he didn't do anything. So just before I left, I rocked up at Horizons Unlimited and I saw him. I think it's Luke Plummer, his name was. I saw him, they were launching the V-Strom at the time. So I went up to him and said, I'm the guy that's been annoying you for 3 years. there's the bike. I leave in like 6 weeks' time or whatever it was. I'm going to do it. And he sort of laughed in my face, and he said, "You'll not do it because you won't do it, the bike won't make it, but more importantly, you won't make it." And that was it, really. Then I was done with Suzuki. Yeah, so I had no corporate help from them. I got to Mexico, and the people in Mexico City, there's a Suzuki factory there, and they were amazing. They heard about the trip and contacted the place where I was getting my bike serviced and said, "We'll do it. And if we can have the bike for like a week, we'll rebuild it." I was like, "Well, I've only got overnight. Literally, I'm only here one night." So they just serviced the bike for free, shut the factory down, and gave me a big escort out of Mexico City. So that was cool. Yeah.
That's a shame about Suzuki, but these manufacturers make these decisions.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I looking back on it now, I can totally understand, because it could have been, it's like the KTM decision, isn't it?
Yeah.
They could have backed me and I could have had an utter nightmare. The bike could have been an absolute pig. I didn't know the bike was going to effectively sail through the trip, but, you know, say it had broken down, that could be bad PR for them. So I understand why maybe they didn't want to get involved. But now, I don't understand now why they don't champion that bike. You know, I've said to them, have it, do what you want to do with it, but
I think
nothing.
That's universal across all manufacturers generally, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, they don't seem to, the people who expose the brand, thinking, you know, Itchy Boots, bless her, she.
Yeah.
I mean, Royal Enfield don't seem, you know, to me, you would be all over it. As a manufacturer.
You'd think it's a PR dream, wouldn't you? Yeah.
In fact, she's now riding Hondas.
Yeah.
It would be a sackable offence to anybody in Royal Enfield PR.
Yeah.
How they could lose an ambassador like that who sold them thousands and thousands of miles.
Yeah, definitely. You think at some point someone somewhere has to take a gamble, don't they? But, oh well.
Yeah. World moves in mysterious ways. But sometimes it's nice to be independent.
Yeah, I think, you know, looking back on it now, I was very lucky in that my sort of financial sponsor that came on board, it was an oil company, Delta Energy, and they effectively wanted nothing from me.
So he's not going to sponsor your electric trick?
No, probably not. But, you know, bearing in mind how much they invested into that trip, they basically gave me, probably in the end, about half of what I needed they gave. And for that, I literally had to rock up at their headquarters in Norway and rock up at their headquarters in Houston. And that was it. That's all they wanted from me. So, you know, it was a dream as far as that's concerned. Because I think with sponsors, you can lose your, individuality maybe to it. It sort of doesn't, it's not your trip anymore.
Authenticity as well.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So I think looking back now, if I was to go again, I mean, it's difficult because I can't afford the fuel at the moment, let alone to go and do that trip. But I think I would like to be without those commitments of a sponsor, if I could, definitely.
Well, I guess we'll talk about the YouTube channel and that after the break. But is there a way to make that from the trip?
Yeah, but with YouTube, it's all about views. You need to get the views up, and I have quite low views. I'm very lucky that I have a very engaged and committed community around about me. But most people with my sort of view level wouldn't be able to go full time, but it's everything else that goes with it, you know, merch and Patreon and events and I've said merchandise. It's everything like that too. I do tours as well. So everything together allows you to, you know, financially exist. But in order to get a reasonable good income off of YouTube, you have to get views up, you know, really get the views up. If you manage to do that, then yeah, you can have a good living off it.
Blue eyes.
What's that?
Blonde hair.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Or BTMF.
You're too excited. What was a good question I was going to ask you? In terms of budget, I mean, that is a big thing.
Yeah.
How much do you need?
Yeah.
What would we be looking at?
We're the two extremes, man, aren't we?
Well, I don't know. I've got the market. I wear socks now.
Right. Okay. So my trip, I've done a video on it on my channel. I think it's one of my most watched vids out there. My trip, absolutely everything that was involved in that trip cost me just under 55 grand. What was yours back from Sydney?
9.
So there's and I could have quite easily doubled mine. quite easily. You know, I wasn't extravagant, but I did stay, I would say probably a third of the time I stayed in like motels, cheapest hotels that I could find. I shipped via air rather than shipping via sea. You literally camped in bushes and lived off like a cheeseburger a day, didn't you? Well, obviously I don't live off a cheeseburger a day. So it all depends on what sort of travel you are, I think, how long you've got, what bike you take, and what your expectations are from that trip. You know, do you want to rough it for 8 months or a year and a half, or you know, do you want a bit of luxury as you go? So the budget can fluctuate massively.
Break that budget down now. What we're talking,
Yeah.
fixed costs? Are we talking? So we're talking visas, shipping.
Yeah, you got visas, you got meds, your carnet as well. Carnet is like your
Security bond.
Yeah, it's a security bond, like VAT for your bikes, basically to stop you buying a bike that's worth X in the UK, taking it to another country where it's worth 5 times A, flogging it, and then not paying the VAT on that bike. You know, so you have that on any equipment that you take out. Shipping, air costs a lot more, but it's a day, 2 days. That's it. You know, you maybe say 3 days is all you'll need to be without your bike for. So for me, shipping from Sydney to Chile, the bike pretty much flew on the same flight as me, and then I had a day either end of that for you know, quarantine. Well, not quarantine, for oh God, what do they call it? Oh, gee whiz, like all the paperwork that has to be gone through. So that's only 3 days that I have to book myself into a hostel. You know, so I've got to feed myself and home myself for 3 days. Whereas if I did that via sea, it could be 8 weeks, you could be 12 weeks. It all depends on what the weather's like. You know, if it's rough at sea, you might not see a bike for a couple of months. So that's a couple of months where you've got living costs, you've got to feed yourself, you've got to home yourself for that length of time. And I didn't have that time available, so I just flew it. What else you got to take into account? Fuel. Depends how economic your bike is. Depends on the cost of the fuel. Europe is pretty much the most expensive, I think, for fuel. But once you get out of Europe, fuel can be mega cheap. So yeah, it's just a question of working it all out, really, isn't it? Just facts and figures.
And how accurate do you think you can be with budgeting?
I would say whatever figure you come up with, probably me, I would double it just to make sure. You know, just to make sure. You're probably not going to need that, but I would just double it to have a margin myself. I didn't come up with 55 grand, I'll tell you that initially. I came up with 30. I thought it would be about 30 grand. And yeah, it was a bit more.
Good old credit card.
It was, I literally had 4 credit cards, and my dad bailed me out massively. So yeah, I paid them off a couple of years ago.
And we've got the time.
10 to 8.
Oh, we've got a little while before break. Any questions on the round the world trip for Bruce? On the nuts and bolts of it?
Who was your first actual sponsor, and how did they come about?
What financial sponsor?
Yeah.
The only financial sponsor was Delta. So they came on board after Africa. I was literally, I was at the NEC with Bridgestone. I was on their stand to talk about my 7-week trip around Europe and Africa on their tyres. And this chap came up and started chatting away, and he said, oh, you know, I've been following your trip, because I was writing for Fast Bikes at the time. And he said, what's your plans? What are you going to do? Are you going to go again? So, you know, I basically had to say yes, but, you know, I'm back at work. I sold everything I owned. I've got to sort of get my cash together and head off. And he basically said, well, you know, my name's Martin. I'm the UK CEO of this company. We were just a way to offer you a sponsorship deal when you pulled the plug. So here's my card. If you want to chat, give me a bell. And I took it, and I sort of sat on it for about 2 months. And I remember I used to be in diplomatic protection in the old Bill. So I was stood on a night duty on the Chinese embassy just after New Year. Pissing down with rain, freezing cold, about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I just remember standing there thinking, what am I doing? You know, I should be like in the Middle East by now, or, you know, done Africa. And I had his card, so I literally got my phone out, which you shouldn't do on post. And I emailed him there and then and said, right, I'm up for going, let's talk. And as luck would have it, he was in Houston with the actual owner of the entire company, because they were opening up a new headquarters in Houston. And he said, I'm on the beers with the gaffer right now. He's interested. Let's have a meeting. We'll meet on this day, date, time, place in Birmingham, where the UK office is. So I did that, went and met them, and they put a deal on the table. That was it.
And the rest of them, was it some new approach, like Krieger and all that?
Yeah, all the other ones were literally just equipment. So Krieger supplied the luggage, Bridgestone were supposed to supply the tyres, blimey, I can't remember who else I had. Yeah, it was just kit. They just supply you, like Shoei gave me a helmet, which Ferridax, who are like the importer for Shoei, Spada, Spidey. So they gave me the gloves, the boots, the helmet, all that sort of stuff. Which is great, because at the end of the day, you don't need to spend your own money on those items. So it is a sort of part.
I guess if you damage or something fails mid, you can get a replacement.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a photo in your slide where your bike was smashed up like that.
Yeah, that's Japan. I'd got all through Russia, where, as I learned, you can't really guarantee that the tarmac's going to stay tarmac. It can just stop, and literally you're straight over dirt. So I snapped the frame twice there. So I got to Japan, and it was just amazing roads. That was all around Mount Fuji, glorious biking roads. And I met up with a couple of expat bikers over there. So they'd invited me to their annual family barbecue. And the next day, I was heading to Motegi, the race circuit, because I wanted to try and do all the world superbike circuits on my trip. So they were like, right, we'll take you on a great route through the mountains to get to Motegi. So I'd been following them in the morning, and they were rapid. And it's the first time I'd ridden fast in a long time. So we're getting on, and I was thinking, the bike feels a little bit weird here, but I just thought it was me. I hadn't ridden like that in a long time. So we stopped for fuel, and the guy said, tell you what, give me your camera, I'll film you go in front, because you won't have any footage. Oh, lovely. And then obviously the little devil on my shoulder was like, you've got to put your knee down in Japan on the Jigsaw. So I just went for it, and was having some fun through some corners, and then I think it's target fixation. I've got it all on camera, you can see it, it's all on YouTube. I just come to a bend, and the bike didn't feel right. I know now it had 2 buckled wheels, but I didn't know at the time. And when I've gone to brake for this corner, the front wheel locked, and then it pushed me wide onto gravel, and then I just lost it at that point. So I just straight into the Armco and smashed the front of the bike up. But as it turned out, I ended up, they said, don't worry about it, we've got a mate who's a bit handy with the tools, he's got a van, we'll give him a call. And this little wee Australian guy called Pete rocked up, who to this day I'm still mates with him, keep in touch with him. And we lifted my bike onto his van, and I lived with him and his family for nearly 4 weeks. And through him I met loads of other people and just had a great time in Japan. Yeah. So again, it's one of those things, isn't it? Things happen on a trip, don't they? And just because you're going A to B doesn't mean to say it's going to be a straight path. It could be all over the shop. Yeah. Just follow it as it goes.
Do you still own the bike?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, she's still in my garage. Yeah, I've not turned her over in 6 years. So, but I'm sure if I change the fluids, change the battery, the plugs and that, she would fire up, no problem. She's sort of held together. All the fairings are held together with the back of the bike's held on with a bungee net. So if I take that off, all the fairings fall off, and the whole back of the bike falls off, and the front, I basically had to knit a lot of the front plastics together with cable ties and plastic weld it. So character.
Like with most people with insurance, obviously, on a bike, it covers you 90 days when abroad.
Yeah.
You get like a specialist, obviously, insurance to cover you for when you're abroad for that amount of time. Yeah,
insurance. You pretty much have to, I'm assuming it's still the same now, but in those days, once you're out of Europe, insurance is just, it's a thing you get at the border. What it's worth, I've got no idea. I'd never ever claimed against it, thankfully.
Take out any personal repatriation stuff?
Yeah, I took out the Royal Mail were doing global yearly insurance at the time, and I think it cost me something like £700 or something like that, which was full repatriation. It was an amazing deal, and I recommended it to so many people once I got back, but they've stopped doing it. So, yeah. But yeah, that's what I took out. Yeah, I don't know if you can get it. Do you know if you can get stuff like that now?
You can get repatriation insurance, but
it's sky high.
I don't with COVID and that.
Yeah.
What you can get really.
Yeah, good point.
There's a few. You've got to be very careful with small print on all policies, really.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them exclude lots of things.
Yeah, definitely.
What I've always used Navigator insurance, and
Have you?
I had a claim. The guy broke his leg out in Australia. They were very good dealing with that, so I always recommend Navigator. Because when you speak to him, he's a one-man agency who knows the ins and outs of every situation and scenario. And,
yeah.
You're not like talking to somebody who's hired just to give you some robotic answers.
Yeah.
Just save any questions until later. We've got half-time hot dogs. We haven't got half-time. If you want to open the back doors, we've got Nicole outside who's got some American hot dogs on the house, Dorothy's speech hot dogs offering. They're not laced with anything. She's formerly kid if anybody wants one, but they are there tomorrow. There's ketchup, mustard, and some sautéed onions as well. So we'll have a 10-15 minute break, get a toilet break. As I say, privacy room is next door if anybody needs a good blowout. Get a cup of tea and cake.
Smash it. See you in a bit, folks.
Right then, folks, whilst everyone goes for a pee break and grabs a hot dog, another shout out for some sponsors. This podcast is also sponsored by Ultimate Add-ons. Now, Ultimate Add-ons are the premium manufacturer of mobile phone and action camera mounting solutions for motorcycles, with a kit for any bike and a proven track record of creating products that keep your devices safe, secure and easily accessible. The Ultimate Add-ons product range is ideal for any rider, from the commuter to the round-the-world adventurer. Why shell out on an expensive GPS system when you could use your smartphone, keeping it charged and within reach to take photos of your travels at the same time? Ultimate Add-ons waterproof, shockproof and dustproof tough cases are available for all flagship smartphone models and are designed by riders for riders. Find out why Ride Magazine gives Ultimate Add-ons their coveted Best Buy certification. Keep riding this winter with Ultimate Add-ons. It's all about the journey. Head to ultimateaddons.com and use the code TeapotOne with the number 10, TeapotOne 10, for 10% off. Everyone asks what mount I use. Well, I use the case for my iPhone 11 Pro, and then I use the Helix strap mount, which you'll find in the pedal cycle section. It's brilliant. There's plenty of give there. I have no issues with vibration on the camera using that mount. It's spot on. That's the one I recommend. We are also sponsored by the Influencer Store. The Influencer Store helps you build your brand, big or small, providing you with a solution and apparel. We help you to increase your fan base while supporting you with starting your own influencer clothing line with nothing more than just an idea or design, and there are no hidden costs. For more info, come check us out at theinfluencerstore.co.uk or drop us an email at online@influencerstore.co.uk for more information. Now, the Influencer Store, they handle all of my merch over at TeapotOne.com. So if you head to TeapotOne.com, head to the shop, everything there is handled by the Influencer Store. Whenever you deal with any of the sponsored mentions here, so whether it's Innov, Ultimate Add-ons or the Influencer Store, please do tell them that Teapot One sent you. It is a massive help for me. All right, folks, hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. Let's crack on for part 2.
Right, folks, welcome back. We've just had our little coffee break, hot dog break, and we'll crack on with the Q&As.
Well, we actually, so for Nicole who just walked in, Bruce essentially went around the world on the bike he pitched, which is a Suzuki sports bike. So we've been talking a little bit about that. And how many miles, Bruce?
74,000. Was it? Yeah, it was, yeah.
So at the time you were employed by the Met.
Yes. Don't hate me.
But they were happy for you to go off and do, what did they call it, sabbatical? Or?
Yes, a career break. Because you're employed by the Crown, at the time you could have up to 5 years sort of sabbatical, unpaid leave, basically, where they would guarantee there'd be a job for you when you came back. So because I worked in a specialised department, they couldn't guarantee I would come back to that, but I could come back as a copper in the Met. So, yeah, I took it.
How big a part of deciding to go was it, knowing that you'd got a job to go back to? So as much financial debt you got into on the trip, you knew at least you could come back and earn X amount of money, which takes a lot of pressure off, doesn't it?
Definitely. It wasn't a deciding factor before I went away. You know, it wasn't, or at least I've got a job when I come back. I would have gone. If they'd said you can't take a career break, then I'd just have resigned and I'd have gone. But once I was on the trip, it definitely was a little comfort blanket knowing that I could rack up the credit cards and, you know, my dad lent me some money and stuff when I was away because I knew that when I came back, I had a job. So,
and I guess were you having to still pay mortgage and things while you were away?
Yeah, I got tenants in to my flat whilst I was away, so at least it's a bit of a story there, but part of that 55 grand, of my budget was 3 months where my initial tenant did a bunk without paying the rent, so I had 3 months before I got more tenants in. So yeah, I didn't really have to worry about my flat because I had rental income coming in there, but I had maintenance for my son. You know, I still had to pay maintenance for my son whilst I was away, so I had to take that into account. I think that was pretty much it, really. I bought the bike outright. I'd paid off all debts before I went, so yeah.
And then coming back from the trip, that's always, well, what was it like after the trip?
Probably the hardest part of the whole trip was, for me, I really got the post-trip blues massively. I'd also developed a heart condition whilst away. I got dengue fever in Indonesia, and I'm not sure if that triggered it or not, but I came back with an erratic heartbeat. So once I came back, you know, I couldn't get back to work because I couldn't pass the fitness test to get my firearms license back to go back to work. So you know, there was a lot of things all there, and I just for a good year or so, I think I think it's probably over dramatic to say I was battling depression, but I was definitely down. I was definitely feeling the blues for sure. Just you come back thinking, well, what was the point? What was the point of all that? You know, like I felt like I'd totally changed, yet nobody else had. You know, everyone that I worked with, they still stood on post outside embassies moaning about the same things, and my mates are still moaning about this with their missus and this with life. And I sort of just felt, I came back with this whole like invigorated attitude that no matter what I want to do, I turn my head to it, I can make it happen, I can do it. And I sort of felt like I came home and was just banging my head against the wall because everyone else is moaning about everything and doing nothing about it. And I suddenly had to rely on being back at work and earning money to pay everything off. And I started feeling really like claustrophobic almost. You know, the freedom had gone. Yeah, I'd spent a year and a half just getting up in the morning and hitting the road, and now I've got to go to work. And then I couldn't go to work like I should do because I had the heart condition. So I was stuck in an office, which I hate. And, well, funnily enough, that's my job now, but never mind. Yeah, so for probably a good year, I really found it quite hard coming back.
That's not something you anticipated either.
No one, only one person that I recall ever spoke to me about life after the trip. And I look back now, and he was going through exactly what I was going through. I'd followed his trip. Brain rotting. Do you remember Graham? He did a trip called Brain Rotting on YouTube. I think it's been pulled now because it was going to be a TV series. But he lived in the same town as me at the time, Bromley in South London. So I'd followed his trip, and when he got back, I said, look, I'm going away on this trip. Can I meet you for a beer and just to chat about things? And I remember when I met him, he was a little bit down. And I remember thinking, oh, you're a bit down in the dumps, but I kind of get it now. And he's the only person that said to me, watch when you come back, because the trip might not make you feel the way you think it's going to make you feel. And yeah, he was sort of right. That, for me, was the biggest battle coming home. Yeah.
And how long ago was that now? That's
2014. Yeah, mid 2014 I got back. So yeah.
So then, how long back in the Met?
Till I was back in the Met.
How long did you then spend back in the Met?
Oh right, I was in the Met until a week before COVID lockdown last year. I resigned. What was that? March, April, May, whenever it was. Yeah, last year. And yeah, went for it.
Longer. It does feel that longer.
Does it?
Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
But the transition from big trip back into work to starting the blogging started when?
I didn't start that until end of 2016, about October 2016.
Why did you do that?
I missed it. I missed the, you know, I'd recorded my whole trip, made videos for it, like once a month, once every sort of 6 weeks, and you start getting a bit of a following. Nothing compared to what I'm lucky enough to have now. I think I had like 600 odd Facebook followers and I think about the same subs for the trip. But people comment and people ask questions, and I miss that sort of like almost one-on-one type of relationship you get with people. You know, I just missed all of that, and I thought, well, you know, people kept messaging me, asking me what you up to now, what you doing, what's happening to the bike. And I thought, well, let's just start doing some vids again. And I really enjoyed the interaction that I was getting once a week, chucking a vid out. And it just sort of went from there, really. Yeah, end of 2016 to now.
5 years.
Yeah.
And is it, I mean, how does the flow go with making videos? Is it getting easier to do, or is it something you see more now as a job? Or?
Yeah, it's definitely a delicate balancing act now. I have found myself a few times, like, you're not making vids sometimes because you want to, it's because I have to, and you're trying to think what am I gonna do a vid on this week. And I think that comes through when you're not into something. I can't fake it, you know, so I have to really enjoy something for it to come through on the camera. And I just find taking a week or two off, that can really help. And something that my missus actually made me do, she said, just go out for a ride on the bike with no cameras. Just go for a ride, go out and contact your mates and go for a ride. And I suddenly realised it had been years since I'd done that. No cameras, just out for a ride with my mates. And it was the best therapy going, you know, you come back totally invigorated and ready to go. But it is in terms of speed of your editing and creating the vids, I think the more the better you get at it and the more skill set you get, the more you put into a vid, which then means it takes longer. So it's like a vicious circle. You know, the better you get, the longer a video is going to take anyway, because you constantly want to better it, don't you? So that's how I am anyway.
But in terms of going full time, so you obviously you left the Met.
Yep.
What was it in terms of adventure? Which was bigger, the setting off on the bike or the leaving of the Met?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. I'd been thinking about leaving the Met for quite a while. If you don't know the background to it, I did a review on a bike, on the new S1000RR. I did a review on that and I enjoyed it. I had some fun. I blur out my speed most of the time. If it's a little bit excessive, I'll blur my speed out. Another copper in the Met put a complaint into our internal affairs and said, this guy's a copper, he's speeding in his videos. And the long and short of it, it wasn't going to go anywhere, but the inspector that was in charge of our specific internal affairs, she didn't like me. So she basically told me I was a disgrace to the uniform and she was going to make sure I got everything that she could possibly throw at me. So she gave me the ultimatum, you either stop all social media, everything. It doesn't matter if you rebrand as another name, you have to stop everything. Or we're going to throw the book at you. And by throw the book at me, the worst they could have possibly done is give me a little note to say you've been a bad boy. But that would be it. And if I continued to make the videos, then it would get escalated to the next stage, which ultimately could force resignation. And so I'd had a little bit of time. This had dragged on for nearly a year. You know, I'd just been on restricted duties while this was all been going on. And my missus basically said to me, she said, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just go for it? You know, you can get a job. You'll always be able to get a job. She did the same job as me at the time anyway, so we were lucky then that if it did go Pete Tong, she could at least cover us for 4 months, 6 months or something until I got a job. So I went for it, and it's been quite exciting. It's been being self-employed is an experience. It's an adventure.
Challenges in that?
Financial for me, massively. I've come from, I was in the job, I was in the old bill for nearly 20 years, and every month, you know, you're getting at least the bare minimum, you know, that's how much you're getting. But I was very lucky to be in the diplomatic side where there's unlimited overtime, so you could earn good overtime there. And I've been there for nearly 10 years, so that's nearly 10 years of a good wage coming in. And then all of a sudden, you know, that goes, and every month you don't know how much is coming in because it depends on how many views you get, it depends on what merchandise you sell, it depends on Patreon, it depends on whether the sponsors pay or not, if they decide to just pull. You know, I've got a couple of channel sponsors. So that's been hard to deal with, the insecurity, but I think anyone that's self-employed faces that. So that's been a big adjustment for me, definitely.
And I guess ultimately by the channel you're selling yourself, right?
Yeah.
Which is something you never have had to do with the police.
Yeah.
Your duty there was to turn up and do your duty, whereas now it's I'm smart and I've got to sell.
Yeah, I kind of think there's some similarities there because, again, in the old bill, you're relying on interpersonal skills. You wouldn't think that with some of the ones you speak to, I appreciate. But I'd always like to think that I treated people fairly, I think. And I don't think I'm any different now to what I was when I was wearing a uniform and carrying a gun around London. It's just the way I was. So I think in a way that probably helped me, and definitely the trip as well. You know, that I became much more open on the trip because I was quite guarded before that. I think because of the old bill, and on the trip has helped definitely with the interpersonal skills. And now, you know, you know, don't you? When you watch somebody on a video, you know if they're bullshitting you or not. Surely, you know. I think the genuine nature of people comes through on camera, especially when you're doing 1 video, 2 videos a week, and you're just chucking them out. People know when you're bullshitting them, I think.
And in terms of, I guess, trolls, everyone who's in the field always know that we'll always get these. I get a lot of comments saying terrible English or speak properly, which I always find quite. They
are just part and parcel of being online, of putting yourself out there online, and it is hard. You know, I consider myself fairly thick-skinned, but I have definitely bit back a few times, and you know, sometimes I think it's the curse of the written word, isn't it? You know, you and I can have a conversation, and I can generally take what you're saying by what you're saying it to me face to face. But if we were to write it down, we can take it in all manner of different ways, you know. And I think that's just a sort of the curse of the comments. Somebody might not mean it in a sarky way, but if I'm in a bad mood, if I've not had something to eat, I might read that and go, "You cheeky bugger," and I'll fire one back, you know. And then they're like, "Whoa, I didn't mean it like that. So it's one of those. Everyone says don't read the comments, but I think you have to when you're trying to build a community out there. And I always think if somebody's taking the time to comment, then I'm going to take the time to at least reply, even if it's just a thumbs up or something. You know, you've got to invest a little bit with people, don't you?
And do you think you're doing more hours now than you would?
Oh yeah, it is the worst paid job in the world in terms of the hours that you put in. But the difference is I love it. You know, even when I hate it, I love it. So you're willing to invest, you're willing to put the hours in. Like I've one video, I've sped up in my editing definitely, but a video will still take me, the quickest one I'll put together is maybe 2 full days, and they could be 12 to 18 hour days to produce one vid, 10-minute, 15-minute vid. It's roughly speaking, if you're at the height of your game, you're looking at 3 to 4 hours for 1 minute of video. So you just work that out. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Let's just make a video now. 1 minute video in a minute.
Well, you can. You know, the thing is, people can do that, and people can just one camera, no editing, pop it up there, and you can do really well. You can do really well. But I'm a bit of I don't know. I'm a little bit not a perfectionist because I still don't know what I'm doing. But I over edit stuff definitely. You know, I put speed transitions in, and I go way over the top on my stuff, which nobody will ever notice, but I know it's in there, so you know.
And how was the sort of the vloggers rap pack come about?
What do you mean, our little group?
It's quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're rather than acting as competitors, this is alternative YouTubers. Instead of acting as competitors, you've almost harnessed each other.
Yeah, I think. Well,
really
there's myself, Missington Flyer, Lamb Chops, Richie Vida, now there's Mr. Fish. It's just a sort of group of us, really, that are all similar age, same mentality, really, and we were all sort of coming up through YouTube at the same time. TMF's rocketed away, Lamb Chops is doing well, I'm doing fairly good, everyone's sort of growing, but we'd never ever met, we just communicated online, really, and then met at, I think, the NEC. And if you've never met TMF before, he's an utter scream, total opposite of what you think he's going to be. And it just went from there, and we just got quite a nice little social group now. And as you said, everyone takes the mick out of each other, but you know, ultimately everyone supports each other. It's good. And there's a whole new crowd coming in now as well. There's a much younger crowd coming in across from like Instagram and TikTok, whatever the heck that is. And you know, there's just a different crowd coming through, which is nice. And I try on my podcast, I try to get as many people from as wide a background as possible onto the podcast. So try and give those that are coming in a bit of a foot up and expose them to my audience and other people's audience. So, hopefully it'll work its way around eventually. So
I suppose the relevance is that now YouTubing and being a YouTuber is in a sense a viable or an optional career choice.
Yeah, definitely.
Our neighbours' kids want to be YouTubers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you lot, but when I was at school and you saw the old guidance counsellor, you're going to be a what? You're going to make videos and yeah, all right. No, it just wasn't an option for me. It was you went into fishing, farming, or the oil. That was literally it at my school in the northeast of Scotland. And yet now there's everything out there, isn't there? And as you said, you can play video games and make a damn good living. You make videos about anything you like on YouTube and make a damn good living. So
is it sustainable?
Something I do think about. I was chatting to people outside. I'm 44. I know I look 64, but I'm 44, and I think to myself, who's going to want to watch me when I'm 50 years old, even fatter and greyer, wabbling on about a motorbike? But as they pointed out, everyone gets older, don't they? Your community just gets older with you. So I don't know, man. I really don't know. I don't know. It's part of the unknown, isn't it?
Does that worry you? Or does that
it does. Yeah, definitely. I got 2 mortgages to pay, so and bills to pay, like everybody does. So that does worry me, but at the same point, it also lights a match under my arse and says, right, pull your finger out and do something about it. You've got to build this little empire, this little business brand that I've got, and see where it goes. What about you?
Well, I just don't watch telly a lot.
Yeah, but for you, you're on the same boat. You're self-employed. You've got a fantastic business going on here. But what about for the future with you? Do you worry about it? You've got a young family now as well, haven't you?
Well, I'm hoping he can work soon. And he can start doing tours, and I'll just take my cut.
Yeah.
That's it.
Like it.
He's only 2, but I've got a few years to go.
Yeah.
No, same, I guess, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, you think don't really want to be riding bikes all life. But, there comes a point where you're sat on I mean, look, today, lovely. Yesterday, lovely. Went down to Hartland Quay, down to Padstow on the bikes, on the Inceptors, beautiful weather. Everyone's having a good time. But if it had been raining... Yeah,
different kettle of fish.
Get me out of here. I want to go home.
You have to build the contingencies in, don't you? I think anyone that's self-employed, anyone with their own little business, you've got to build some contingencies in there. And I think at the moment, I'm not entirely sure what those contingencies are just now. Yeah. Still finding my feet, so... but that'll come.
Multiple streams of income, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not reliant on one thing.
No.
I mean, the challenge, as you know, is COVID is there's a predictable plan ahead of you, and then there's a rug from under you.
Yeah, part of my business plan was my tours to Spain, and obviously that was just knocked on the head. That's an income that just hasn't existed since COVID came along.
Make up for that, you've got to find another way, haven't you?
Absolutely, yeah, you do.
Because people, I guess the assumption is that guy's living the dream. He's on YouTube making videos, what an easy life. But the stress of A, finding content, and B, finding finance is...
Yeah, but again, like I said before, I love every second of it, even when it's hit and I'm hating it, I'm loving it. I'm working for myself. I'm doing something I love, so I can't complain about that. You just got to keep going. That's it. Because at the end of the day, if you do give up, well, it's only going one way, isn't it? So, as I said before, you focus on the prize and keep going. Just figure out a way, figure out the path. I think every self-employed person is doing that, aren't they?
Well, we've got to, haven't we?
Yeah, you have to.
Or we'll be delivering, I don't know, you have to get a job, won't we?
Yeah, but I think the key is finding something you love, because then it's not work. Then it's just a bad day. At the end of it, it's just a bad day, because that day comes when you have the good day and you're like, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this, or I'm making money out of this. This is unbelievable. So, yeah.
Anybody else out there? Well, I know we've got the Exeter rider. Where is he? There he is, Exeter rider.
I'm trying to keep quiet.
How you doing? You all right? We had a chat the other week, didn't we?
No, I've got no question.
All right.
Can I ask, Bruce, is it something maybe you wish you'd started earlier?
No, I wish I could redo my trip to edit it the way I edit now and with my knowledge now, because I look at that round the world trip and just think, oh God, the sound's crap and the quality's crap. But then I think the rawness probably adds to it, because I think you can see me change and sort of my technical ability change throughout that trip as well. It is a journey, isn't it? It is a little voyage that's always caught on camera. And then the other part of it is, I think when I jumped ship to go full time, I was proper ready by that point and really focused. And maybe if I'd gone before, I might have given up. I don't know if I'd have, maybe thought, oh, I need to get a proper job financially. Whereas this time it was like, right, I'm doing it. I'm going for it. So I think I did it at the right time for me, anyway.
Well, you couldn't have done it any sooner, or you done it sooner.
Well, yeah. It was the right time. The stars aligned.
Where did you get the name for the TeapotOne?
TeapotOne. Believe it or not, TeapotOne is the call sign for the Met Police catering truck. So like the hot dog van outside, the Met has a genuine van like that, liveried up white with the jam jar stripes down it, and its call sign's TeapotOne. And when there's a mass deployment of officers for like demos, just anywhere where there's going to be a lot of coppers for any prolonged period of time, I'm not sure if they do it now, but they used to deploy TeapotOne, and it just meant you got, like, say you were at a demonstration or a riot, you'd get taken off the front line for 10 minutes, and you'd go and get a cup of tea, have a fag, biscuit. They used to do bacon butties and all that sort of stuff. So you just literally got time off the front line to get your head together, get a breather, kitted up, back on the front line again, and they'd just circulate everybody off the front lines like that. So when I was trying to think of a name for the trip, one of my mates in the job said, why don't you call it TeapotOne, because you're taking a break. You're coming back, but you're taking a break. And I thought, yeah, okay, why not? And that's where it came from.
If the Met didn't give you an ultimatum to leave, would you reckon you'd still be there?
Ooh. Yeah. I think so. I think that was the push, the sort of boot up the bum I needed, to be honest. I by the time I left, I hated it. That was just a job. I was that copper that was like, keep out my way. I don't want to talk to. I would talk to public I was lucky in my role that generally we weren't always public facing, because you're carrying a firearm and you're at diplomatic places. So most of my time was away from the public. But I'd had enough with the whole organisation really by that point.
Did you have any other plans? If it wasn't YouTube, what you would have done afterwards?
Wow. I had a few ideas. Yeah, I've got mates in the security military background, and there was the Middle East thing out there. But yeah, I was in no hurry to take a job like that. But it was an option for sure. That was about it, really. To be honest with you, it was just. At the time I was not thinking I was going to jump ship. I was just going to grind out the last 10, 12 years of my service for that pension. That was it. And then, the ultimatum came my way, and it was like, right, got to go. Let's go for it. Yeah, they did, massively. Yeah. They did do me a favour.
Bruce, you mentioned the post-trip blues.
Oh, yeah.
Do you ever question whether it was worth it?
Yes, yeah. Those words came out of my mouth. What was the point of that? Just everything had been focused on that trip, and then I did it. I was like, now what? What do you do now? What's the point now? Like, what do you do with life now that you've lived the dream? So yeah, it did pop into my head. Yeah, for sure. What
got you out of or past that?
I think my missus, probably, to be honest. My missus was a big point of that. She's way stronger than I am. She's been a tower of strength throughout the whole thing, and she was just sort of saying, well, life isn't over just because you've achieved what it was that you set out to achieve. We've got a life together ahead of ourselves, and there's a lot more to life. And it was just, I don't know. I think I just sort of. It was almost like I don't know about you, but it was like a switch went off again, where I was like, oh, hang on a minute, life does go on. You can set your sights on another adventure, whatever it is, whether that's, life with my missus, or buying a new house that we were planning. There's lots of adventures in life that you can make, isn't there? So it's not just going to be boring for the rest of my life now. There's all sorts of options out there. But at the time, I had no plan to do another big trip at all. But that's definitely starting to raise its head.
Well, you've got a big trip tomorrow.
Exactly, I'm looking forward to this. Yeah. No off-road, you said, all tarmac, yeah?
No, it's all. You'll be all right.
If you did another round the world trip and you had to leave, well, not tomorrow because you're doing the day after.
Yep.
Would you take your GSXR or would you take the BMW outside? I'm opposed to this tomorrow.
God's honest here, I would take any bike that was out there, any bike that was available. I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care what bike I took. I'd just take it. Doesn't matter. Any bike will do a trip like that. Any bike.
The second one was really commendable to anyone hearing you that you did the trip to honour your mum that I'm really sorry that passed away.
Thanks, man.
And did you find that through that trip that because you're doing it, maybe that put a real fire under your backside?
Oh yeah.
You want to keep going?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, after Africa, when it went a bit Pete Tong there, when I got that option to go again, it was like, right, this is happening. It's going to, even if I have to carry the bike on my back, I'm doing it. It's happening. So, I said to people before, my mum was there on that trip. There was just the way things happened, the way the stars aligned at times. You're like, this is weird. This is just very weird. It's not a coincidence the way things happen. It's just, I don't know. But she was there. She was there with me for sure.
You said when you go back to you like to do Africa again.
Yep.
But being the first time you got robbed at every boulder, what would you do differently from the first time to the second time to not get robbed?
Keep going.
Just keep going.
You're gonna, at the end of the day, if somebody wants money, they'll take the money. So you either give it to them, or ultimately they'll take it if that happens. But that doesn't happen everywhere. I was just really unlucky at that time, and I think probably a culmination of me doing it on that bike with the bike covered in logos, in leathers. I looked $1 million, and they probably thought I was absolutely minted. Whereas Roger next to me on his old Ural in his rigger boots and, crappy little jacket, he got away with it most of the time. Whereas I was the one that was getting targeted. So, and that was only Mauritania. I did 54 countries, so 53 countries. People were fantastic. So it's just one of those things. Yeah.
When you were going through Mauritania, did you ever think about putting your Met experience into action?
Do you know, I genuinely think my police background hindered me in Mauritania, because going through there, my hazard perception was off the scale. Everywhere I looked, everywhere off the road is landmines, so there's landmine signs everywhere, so you can't go off the road, you're on the road. Then at one stage there was no road, the road had dropped like 3 feet, and that's where I broke the frame, because I jukes a hazard. I was doing like 90 mile an hour down the road, and I just jukes a hazard through the air. And then we got chased by the old Hilux trucks with the groups of hijabi guys with the AKs on it. We got chased into the first town. Literally from the second the border gate opened, I ended up in a minefield. So it's like the second the border gate opened to the second I left after getting taken at Rosso, Mauritania was just, this is fucking dangerous. This is not good. So as a copper, I was seeing all this everywhere, and I was just on edge. Whereas Roger, he was just like, "Whoa, this is quite exciting, isn't it?" So I think that really hindered me in Mauritania, and I learnt to sort of switch that. What's the word? Not cautious. No, what's the word? Like the copper instinct. Who's trying to kill me now? Switch that, not off, but turn it down to 1 rather than it being at 11. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, for the rest of the trip, it was more of a let's just enjoy it and let's just see what goes on. Yeah.
What was your favourite place to ride from?
Ooh, there's quite a few. Norway's right up there. The riding's fantastic. The scenery is absolutely amazing. The downside is the biking community is fantastic, really strong. But the downside is the police are really hot on speeding, and it is majorly expensive there. Japan is fantastic. I'd go back there in a heartbeat. Russia. Loved Russia. If you've never been and you've got any inclination to go. I loved it. Really friendly people once they know you. They're really, really friendly. I didn't find the riding particularly great there. It's quite, it's literally there's a picture on here where it says 1,000 and something miles to the next turn, to the next exit. Yeah, that's what the roads are like, just off into the distance. But it's everything else that goes with it. You're in Russia, you're crossing one of the biggest land masses on the planet. The people were really friendly. The biking community over there is really, really friendly. I loved being in Russia. Where else? Blimey. God. Thailand was fantastic to ride in. Really, really good fun. There's so many, honestly. There's so many.
About the podcast.
Yeah.
That's obviously come on leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
It's COVID, and you're doing really well in the top 5, I think.
Yeah, cheers.
With that, could that ever, if YouTube shut down tomorrow, could that be like a replacement?
Not.
You see yourself like maybe doing that more, maybe,
I would love to. I would love to do more with the podcast for sure, but I'm not. Although it's in like the top 10% globally, but it's still not that much. It's like 10 to 15,000 downloads a month, which puts you in that top 10%, but the jump from top 10 to top 5, you need to be having like 500,000 to 1 million downloads a month. So it's a massive jump. Once you get to that top 5, that's when, you can start attracting some fairly substantial corporate episode sponsors,
Do you make money through like Spotify and that?
I do, but I charge 10 quid an episode, so I'm not going to retire on that. But once you get to like top 5, there's people charging 20, 30, 40 grand for an episode. So, it's a big jump. It's a massive jump. So we're a long, long, long way off that. But I love, you might have guessed, I like to chat. So I love the podcast. I love long form content. Really is good. I find it enjoyable. I get a chance I've had some incredible people on as guests, I love it. It's great. So yeah, I'll keep plugging away with that and see where it goes.
Bruce, when you done like your tours with people who were guided tours with like chicken strips and some of the ones you went into Morocco, is there times when you think, I don't want to be taking these people 2 trips of Springs of Islands? Yeah, the guy on the Thruxton.
Yeah, Amish.
And the one where you went into Morocco.
Yeah, with that group.
A little bit slower.
Yeah, I like the Moroccan trip. I'll address that first. That was a sort of joint collaboration between me and Lyndon that owns Toro Adventure. So I was just a guest guide that took people away on his trip, and the idea was I would take like my community, people that wanted to come and ride with me, away on one of his trips on his bikes. But he'd managed to get these 3 or 4 chaps for this trip who had no idea who I was. They were like in their mid-70s. They'd never seen any of my videos. So the guys that came away with me expected to ride the way I ride on my trips, and these group of lads wanted to just toddle along. And by toddle, I mean like 10 to 15 miles an hour. It was hard going. So that was a bit of a nightmare, and it was just a nightmare trip. You've seen the videos, I'm sure. There. Yeah, like hotels didn't exist that had been booked. Bikes broke down. It was just, for the first 3 days, was just nightmare after nightmare after nightmare. But that is life on the road, isn't it? You get times like that. So that was a bit of a nightmare. But that, for my own trips, I always make sure when people book through me, have you watched the vids? Have you seen the vids? Are you happy to ride like that? That is what everyone expects when they come on my tours. So that's how I cover that. The one with Amish is a friend of mine from the old Bill. We used to go away every year, big group of us would go away. They were all accomplished riders, they're all police trained. Amish had only just passed his test, but we were like, come away with us, go in the middle. Well, the first trip, he nearly died twice. And then the next year, he should be dead. I haven't edited that video because it's horrific, but he basically head-started Portugal at quite a considerable speed, and that's 2.5. Head-started Portugal. He came off the bike, somersaulted over the handlebars and smashed into a boulder at upwards of 70 mile an hour. well upwards. He smashed into it, yeah. He's not right yet. He's still 2.5 years down the line. His shoulder still hasn't, he's obliterated that side of his body. And that side, the bones haven't knitted yet. So that was a big eye-opener. You know, after that, I thought, I had to put the phone call into his missus, you know, to say he's alive, but he's in hospital and will be for a while. The thought did go through my head, if I was doing this with random punters that I don't know, I'm not sure if I want that responsibility. So that put me off tours for quite a while, to be honest. I just thought, I'm not sure if I'm going to do this.
So it's fun when it's fun.
Yeah. It's a big responsibility at the end of the day, isn't it?
You know, you self-drive on the road, so it can go wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it doesn't, it's not...
You're kind of in, well, not in charge, but you're meant to be guiding people.
Yeah, definitely.
That they've paid for an experience.
Yeah.
And something goes wrong. It's, like I said, a big response.
You can't control everything when you're out on the road, can you? You know, animals walk out, there's debris in the road, other vehicles do stupid things, we do stupid things, people get tired. You've had it on your trips, haven't you? You know, nightmares can happen on trips, and it's just part of that, isn't it, really, at the end of the day? What's that?
A good disclaimer.
Yeah, well, I do have T's and C's. Yeah. I might have to relook at them before I do more tours, but I do have T's and C's in there. Yeah, for sure. Has anyone else got any other questions?
What are you going to do with the jigsaw now? Are you going to just leave it sitting in the garage, or are you going to store it? Or?
Yeah. Every time I go into the garage and I look at her, I just think, what a shame that she's just like slowly degrading, slowly just dying in the corner of my garage. So I would love to have her back on the road. I'd love to be able to ride her on the road again. But at the same extent, A, I don't want anything to happen to her when I'm out riding on the road, you know, accidents happen. And B, to get her through the MOT, there's so much of that bike would have to be changed. You know, the whole rear subframe's hanging on by one bolt. All the plastics are held on with cargo net. The wiring's probably had it, so that'll need to be stripped and rewired. There's so much of that bike that will have to go. It'll have to be washed. It's never been washed since, I think the last time I washed that bike was to get into Australia. So, you know, it's apart from the rain, the thing still got the dirt on it from the American continent, and so it would have to lose all that. I'm not sure if I'm ready to let go yet of that part. But I think ultimately, I'll probably get her back on the road and at least have her running.
Just sitting there.
Yeah, definitely.
Getting covered in other bits and pieces.
Yeah. Because Dorothy still goes, doesn't she?
Yeah, she'll be out leading you tomorrow.
Beautiful. I love that. That's mega. I've got a couple of questions on my Patreon. Are you all right to go through some of them? Is that all right?
No, so we need to go. I said finish at 9. Well, only a little 10 minutes.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah, is that all right?
Right, let me have a little look here. Bear with me, please, folks. Sorry. On my Patreon, basically, I post up who the guests are on the podcast, and they have the option, first and foremost, to leave some questions for those people, and they're often quite obscure. So we'll see where it goes. Well, we might get there. Where are we? Here, right. Bear with me, folks. Right, who have we got here? First one, my mate Mark Fulcher. Out my ducks, hope the evening is going well. Just to throw a spanner in the works, everyone keeps banging on about how the future is electric bikes and they are this and they are that. But the practicalities of it and infrastructure just aren't in place or reasonable at this current time. Would you say it's better to shelve the bikes for now and let's enjoy proper bikes for a lot longer, or keep banging on about how good they are when we all know that they aren't up to it? Okay, I think ultimately we can figure out Mark's not an electric fan. Have you ridden electric?
The Harley thing.
Yeah, live wire.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Crap.
Okay, why?
A good piece of technology, but it's not. I just find it very boring.
Did you?
Only
Right.
25 minutes and I'm bored.
Right.
Because you go, wow, it's fast, but then there's no other element to motorcycling there. And I just thought that I was being led by, it was from a dealer ride out, and it was being led by a Multistrada 950 that was, as he accelerated hard, I could hear his exhaust and gear change and all. It was all happening for him, and I was just sat there twisted. So you
got nothing else from the experience?
And then you go, well, it's 30 grand for a bike that can do 70 miles.
Yeah.
And then the argument is just, I mean, it's a nice dressing, window dressing. But
Yeah.
until they can do a GS with a 300 mile range that you can recharge in 4 hours or whatever, then I don't see one.
I think for me, I've sort of been lucky enough I've been riding them for the last 3 or 4 years now and seeing them develop. And I think I'm not like you in that I found, there's not the sound, there's not that part of the experience, but I found there was lots of other things. Like I remember going down the country lanes in like Kent, and you can hear the birds. You come round the corner and there's wildlife in the road because they've not heard you coming, and there's all these other aspects. You hear parts of the bike working that you don't when you've got the engine going. So for me, there was lots of other bits that sort of almost replaced the fact there was no engine. And I love the torque of these things. They're phenomenal. Sorry about you.
Just, if we all like different types of bikes, sports bikes, inline fours, twins, V-twins.
Yeah.
If you closed your eyes on an electric bike, can you tell which one you run?
I think you can with the Harley. I think the Livewire definitely, out of the ones I've ridden a fair few of the Zeros and the Energicas. The Harley for me feels unique. It almost feels like a Harley, weirdly. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why it does.
Pushy.
That's it. Yeah. There's just something different about the Livewire. It's not my favourite. Definitely not my favourite. But I think it's probably the most unique riding experience out of them all. Yeah. But I don't think electric's the answer. Full stop. I don't think it's the answer we're looking for. I think it's the path we're going to be forced to go down. But I don't think it's the answer. But I don't know what is.
Awesome car, I think.
Well, yeah. And the infrastructure's just not there. I just did something with a TV show a week ago.
We can talk about that.
Oh, we can do, yeah. The TV show, it's a new... do you know about Adventure Bike TV? Have you ever seen that? It's the same people that do Adventure Bike TV. They've got a new one coming called the Motorbike TV show. It's supposed to be more road focused. Ultimately, they wanted to become like a bike top gear. And it's due to be released at the end of this month. It'll start end of this month. So there's 3 of us, 3 presenters have been working on it the last sort of 2 months. So watch this space. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. But yeah, we went away and did like a road trip, 3 of us, just to see how practical electric bikes were. And the answer is, when there's a group of you, they're not practical in the slightest. But if you're by yourself, it's a different kettle of fish. It's not as bad as you think it's going to be. And I've got something in the pipeline for that. Not around the world. Right, next one. Pete English. Now, Pete is a bit of here we go, yeah. Pete has got a bit of a reputation for his questions. Hi guys, hope you're all fit and well. Question. You've both planned many road trips across this beautiful world, but to what degree have you been able to control the direction of your career, and are you happy with the route it has taken? Oh. Yeah, he likes his deep questions. Over to you first.
I don't have an answer. I can't even answer that.
I think for me, yeah, we've discussed it quite in depth already tonight, haven't we? I couldn't be, I could be happier if I was minted. If I was like TMF, I'd be enrolling in the money. Happy days. Who wouldn't want more cash? But I love where I am in life. I love what I do for a living at the moment. I love the freedom that I've got. I'm perfectly happy. Go on. That was to us both. Well, I'm conscious of the time. We've already gone over, haven't we?
Yeah, as long as you've got one, do one more.
Yeah. Is everyone happy?
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you here all night. Yeah. Right, let's have a little look.
2 more. We'll do the second one. Is it guessing about tyre choice?
Brian McManus. You know Brian McManus, he's been here before. Hi to all, hope all is well in your worlds. A question from Nathan. Have you found your earplug yet?
No.
What's the story behind that then?
I was up to outside and you had 10 of them looking still didn't find it.
That's it. I was expecting something way more exciting than that.
No, it's nothing interesting. Yeah, just annoyingly they developed an earplug that's exactly the same colour as that gravel hat.
Oh, handy. Yeah, that's good. You sure that wasn't what was in your ear?
No, it's a beautifully crafted earplug ready to go back in the ear, and I just dropped it, and that was it. It's gone forever, so it'll be there. But I did drop an earplug in Scotland once, up on the NC500, on roughly like a 1/4 mile stretch of road, forested road.
Yeah.
one year, and I couldn't find it. I went back and forth about to leave because the group were going. And I went back the following year and I combed the area and found it.
No. Tell me you didn't put that in your ear.
Yeah. Spit in a wire.
Wow.
What else could you do with it?
Oh, well, yeah.
It was a custom plug, that was the thing.
All right.
We got ways to custom plug.
Has anyone got any questions? Anyone that's here? Anything we've not covered?
What's this new Adventure Bike TV on? Is it on Netflix?
Oh, that's a good one. Aye, it was supposed to be on Amazon Prime, but they handle it at the start of the year. They change the conditions about what content they'll have, so it can't go on that anymore. So it's now going to be on Motorsports TV, which used to be not Many Motors, but I think it was called Motors. It's now called Motorsports TV, so it's on one of the channels on.
Will it be on digitally anyway?
Yeah, it's on one of the. That is what.
Will it be on a YouTube-esque streaming type?
It's going to be on the Dunlop website. You'll be able to watch it for free on the Dunlop website. So if you go on dunlop.co.uk or dunlop.com, whatever it is, it'll be on there. They're the principal sponsor, so. It'll be on there. Babe Station, yeah. If things get really bad, you might see me on there, yeah. Hello? You're weird.
A question for Nathan, that's all right. From your trip from Sydney back to London on Dorothy, firstly, is she still on the same engine? And also, did you have any mechanical failures, and if so, what were they?
Come stand in here so you're in front of the camera. Come on, I'll just turn the camera on. I'll turn the camera on you then. Hang on, folks. Go on. It's magic. Look at this. Oh, it's disconnected. That's a lot.
Yeah, same engine. Just had a top end in Seattle at 80.
That's not me.
I think 85,000 kilometres, and she's on 100. Just gone over, so she's on like 200k now. But no, it seems alright. It's a bit loose, a bit rattly, but still runs alright. It's not quite as quick as some of the other postie bikes that have got a lot less miles. It's uphill, you just feel uphill, you'll have to go down a gear, not quite as on the throttle. Mechanical problems? No, not really. Some bolt round getting threaded out by, I'm blaming an Indian mechanic for it killing me. But so that was a self-inflicted one. And then just a gasket leaking from the output shaft, and then spoke started breaking. So I'd tell it, but 400,000 kilometres. But in fairness, those bikes, those bikes in the cage, they all did the route that you probably can't see on that Australian map. They all did Brisbane to Perth through the Outback. So I've been doing guided tours since 2017. So I took a group of 9. Brisbane to Perth through the Outback, 3 weeks through the dirt, some of the rides I'd never ridden off-road before, which was a big baptism of fire.
Yeah, I bet. Blame me.
One was an ex-police lady, Dawn, 58.
Oh yeah, I know her.
Yeah,
no.
She knows you. Yeah, Dawn.
That Dawn. Yeah, got you.
So 9 bikes did that trip, which was 5,000 kilometres. So times by 9, that's 45,000 kilometres. All those postal bikes had already done 3 years as postal bikes, and the bike I had done 70,000 kilometres when I set off, and they all came across that without any problem whatsoever. My carb needle clip fell off on the first day, so we just put that back on. But yeah, 45,000 kilometres, then bikes didn't miss a beat. So, you know, it was, and equally they'd done a year and a half for anybody who turns up wanting to ride them, taking them out green laning. And bashing around Devon's lanes, or bashing around the ABR test track, or those bikes have been thrashed and will be thrashed tomorrow and all next year. And so far, touch wood, a few bits of puff of smoke, but
you've done it now, haven't you?
Yeah, not one will break down, but yeah, for all intents and purposes, those bikes are not indestructible because everything's breakable, but they do a good job of being indestructible. Which is why the 125 behind there, if everybody's not seen it, I've got the CT 125. It's got a lot to live up to, really. You know, that age-old question: do they build them like they used to? Who knows? Time will tell. In some ways, the 125 would be better, fuel injected ABS, electric start, would be nice. a bit more speed, but will you be able to throw it down as many dirty lanes and it still keep kicking? Not sure, really, but we'll find out when they finally get the registration documents back through. But yeah, I mean, but bike choices always comes down to reliability for me. But I know masochistic people who purposely pick unreliable bikes because they see it as introducing them to people when they break down, which is bizarre. You normally have to stop and say hello to somebody, and that engages the conversation. You don't normally have to throw a pistol or anything like that. I'm thinking of. What's his name? Henry Nottage, who went around the world tried to go around the world on a Matisse, one of the new Matisses. I think he got as far as Iran, Pakistan, but I think he broke down every state.
That was a few years ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah. But he loved it. He said, I spent like 3 weeks with an Iranian family while I waited for whatever clutch replacement or whatever he needed. So it was an absolute disaster, but it made his trip. But I think that's part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Down to how much time you've got, really. But in fairness, from my guiding experience so far, it's the new bikes that never fail. I've got to say, people who say just get an old Japanese bike. Well, if I was to put a tally up of the most failed bikes and trips, it would be old Japanese bikes. I think we've had 3 C90s fail simply because people don't check oil and put them dry and then the C's up. But yeah, I if I was choosing a bike, I could new. Definitely new. Not new and overly complex, I suppose. That's where I'd probably draw a line at the big 1200 type stuff that's got the electronic suspension and all that. And keyless ignition, I kind of find that's a bit too. But basic stuff, fuel injection, ABS and all that's quite, to me, just, there's a limit. So.
Unofficially, have you taken one of the number plates off of one of the old ones and put it on the new 1600 policy with its luck?
We were talking about a farm. B at the back was to the caterer, she's got a farm, so we did have a little poodle around there. It's nice. You just got to get used to it. Let's say it's an Australian gearbox, so it's down to go up. But it's.
Is it all race style?
They call it race, but I don't get how going down to go up it means it's a race style, but I'm sure there's
to do a corner, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
Because the CT1 tends to conventional up to go up, but these are down to go down. So down to go up even. So we'll wait for the sound of crunching gearboxes.
Bruce, I've got a question. How come you don't do too much with Royal Enfield? You haven't rid of many Royal Enfields?
They've never ever contacted me. No. It's like Yamaha's never ever contacted me.
Like a little dealer or something.
Do you contact them though?
Now, not really. No, just the PR teams for the various manufacturers will just say, do you fancy this? Do you fancy that?
So it's got to the point where the manufacturer contacts you to say you've got this?
Yeah, what tends to happen now, when there's a new model that's being launched, basically they just send like a press pack to everybody. Everyone gets it. And I think, depending on how... I'm going to get all contentious here. No, I'll not go down that route. I don't do them. Like, people create vids based around press packs. I don't do that. I want to ride the bike myself and see what it's like. Spend. I like to do a lot of miles on a bike, like at least a couple of hundred, if not a couple of thousand if I can, to see what that bike's like. But I know a lot of people that spend 20 minutes on a bike and then we'll do a vid on it, a vid review.
That's not me.
Yeah, me either. I can't do that. I want to know what that bike's like before, because some people out there, like they will base their buying decision on a video. Yeah. Some people don't ever throw their leg over a bike before they. So I want to make sure I give an honest and accurate review of what that bike's like. So I tend to let all that go by and then do it once that wave's passed, which does mean you don't get as many views because the hit's gone. Yeah, but yeah, I suppose now I'm sort of lucky in that they'll contact me and say, "Do you want this?" Yeah, but yeah, I've never been in touch with Royal Enfield. I don't even know where there's a dealership near me, to be honest.
I was thinking one of Nathan's actually.
All right, I'd love to.
GT or something like that. You might enjoy that.
I'd love to try them. I'm open to any bike. Like on.
A good
on Sunday, I've got a mate whose dad owns a couple of turn of the century, as in the 20th century, 1905, I think they are, 1915 bikes. So taking them out to review. So, you know, I can't wait to, he said, as long as it's not raining, you can take them out. So, so yeah, I'm up for riding anything. I'll ride anything. Not bothered.
Okay, well, I guess on that note, we better end.
Just the one.
Go on.
Because he's let you off easy.
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
Yes, really. Okay, this can be for both of you. So,
come in.
Eating some radioactive vegetables.
Yeah.
They tasted real good and gave you a superpower. What would it be?
Ooh.
Happiness.
Oh, you're lovely, you are. God, superpower. You've got off light, haven't you?
I don't know.
Gee whiz.
That's why I invite you.
I'd like to fly. That'd be cool. Yeah, that would be cool.
Probably not from a bike.
Yeah, I've done that a few times. I wouldn't recommend it. I still creak and crunch from a few of them. Yeah, fly. I'd love to fly.
Yeah. I'd like to be able to fix porches.
And on that note,
and do either of you have any secret talents like synchronised swimming or ballet?
Blimey. No. This is it.
Losing left eye.
No.
Hidden talents. No.
I used to play the Joanna. I used to play the piano, but that was a long time ago. So.
I'm very good at skateboarding.
Are you?
Yeah, very good. I'll show you tomorrow.
Next year's weekender.
No, as in, like, I stopped playing the piano when I was 11. So it's a long time ago.
You know Dickie Davis is going to get you.
Yeah, you will. I've never liked him. Yeah.
Cool, round of applause.
Well done.
Bruce, please.
Cheers, folks. Cheers, folks. Thanks very much. Hope you've enjoyed this one, folks. Tune in next week for the next one. Look after those that you love. Get on out there and live your life.
Any last raffle ticket entries?